Hi, I'm Kate Cassidy. I'm VP of Advanced Markets at Barnum Financial Group, and we're here today to talk about a relatively new estate planning strategy that's available to Connecticut residents. It's called a Domestic Asset Protection Trust. And it's kind of an exciting strategy in the estate planning world because it allows the person who sets up the trust, the grantor, to be able to retain some access to the trust assets. So it's a way to put your own assets in trust for yourself. And that can be a very effective and flexible strategy, both for asset protection and for estate tax planning. And it's a strategy that's been available in other states for decades, states like Alaska and South Dakota and Nevada, the states where they actually purposely draft their trust law to attract people to the state. And we've been a little bit behind the times when it comes to our trust law, but recently in the last few years, the state has revamped its trust law, and now we have this strategy that really is kind of on the cutting edge of estate planning. So I'm here today to talk about it with one of our financial advisors who has actually worked on this type of case and can tell you a little bit more about the kind of client it's good for, how it works, and what's attractive about it. So I'm here with Ben Soccodato. Ben, you want to give a little intro to who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Kate, very nice to work with you on this case, but on so many cases. I'm Ben Soccodato. I'm a certified financial planner with Barnum Financial Group's SKG Team. And we do a lot of estate planning, Kate and I. So we spend a lot of time talking about basic matters with our clients, but really important matters, figuring out kind of how to get their stuff to where they want it to go. And then some more complex matters. And today's conversation will be a fairly complex topic. Took me a while to understand it, but after multiple meetings with the client and the legal team, I think everybody was in agreement it was the right strategy for the client's situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think in general is attractive about a DAPT? We call them a DAPT, a Domestic Asset Protection Trust.
A DAPT.
A DAPT, yeah, DAPT.
A DAPT, a
Yes.
DAPT.
Right.
So when we think about irrevocable trusts, the word irrevocable, in most circumstances means there's restriction, right? There's limitation. I'm giving up some level of control in exchange for some level of protection. In many cases, if it's an asset that we think is going to highly appreciate, I'm removing growth from my estate for estate tax purposes. That can be very beneficial. And what was really attractive about this strategy was we're getting pretty much all the benefits, but without the lack of flexibility and control that normally would come with an irrevocable trust.
Right. This particular client that we worked on together was a business owner.
Correct.
So I believe that he put a big piece of his business into the trust.
Yeah, so I think he was really the ideal prospective client because his business was in a position where it's been growing fairly aggressively already. The valuation of the business has been moving up, more than market growth rate. And they were getting ready to expand. So his intentions were to continue to expand the business, theoretically increasing value in the future. So the idea of I can capture, which, we've both been doing this for a long time. We've seen federal estate tax exemptions as low as $1 million in our career. Now we're seeing federal estate tax exemptions at $15 million roughly. Per person. I can remove this valuable asset today that's getting more valuable out into the future from my taxable estate, and I don't have to give up the control to the extent that I normally would have in the past.
Right. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the mechanics of a trust, of a DAPT. You have to have it's irrevocable for one thing, like we said. You have to have an independent trustee. So the independent trustee has to be either a resident of Connecticut or a business in Connecticut, like a trust company.
Yes.
And do you see that as presenting an issue for a lot of your clients, having to deal with an independent trustee, having to go through somebody other than, say, their spouse to get access?
I think each circumstance is unique, right? And in this individual circumstance, it was a very easy fit for who the trustee would be, because this is also somebody that's entrenched in the business, that understands the business in and out, that's a key employee of the business,
Right.
understands his intentions and goals. So I think for this individual, it was a very easy concept, because that person's already serving, almost as a fiduciary in their life already.
Yeah. I find that most people who are sort of high level in their business lives have somebody who they sort of their natural
Right.
person to choose in that role. It's obviously a complicated strategy. How do you think it's going to work to live with? Do you think it's going to be a difficult thing for people to live with going forward once it's set up?
That's my concern, right? Like, we set this up, it sounds phenomenal. It can theoretically save you a tremendous amount of money and your estate a tremendous amount of money in executing in the plan. But what are we, giving up? What limitations on the income, on, the ability to leverage the asset are we giving up that may become, important as your financial life changes and things evolve down the road? And, the client and I had a few offline conversations about that risk. And I think, one of the valuable aspects of, my role as the planner is, here's the nuts and bolts of it. Here's what the textbook says. But really, how does this make you feel? Right? How does the, theoretical, I have to go to somebody else to get what I'm accustomed to taking on my own, how does that make you feel? And again, for everybody, it's very different. But when you weigh the pros and cons and you think about a business that, let's say today is valued at 10 million, but, if the plan gets executed, it could be 100 million.
Right.
If I can remove that 100 million from my estate, I potentially saved my family tens of millions of dollars.
40% federal plus
40%
Connecticut.
It's
Yep, it's certainly
plus
it's a big tax.
Connecticut.
Top 3 to 12.
Right, so I mean, when you think about the economic benefit of it, and then the trade of what am I really giving up in this circumstance, the client's very intelligent, fully understood kind of what the risks are. I think today the idea of having like a trust protector in place, which is, I think, a fairly new concept. I don't remember 20 years ago us talking about trust protectors. Maybe
Definitely getting more popular, especially as we're doing more irrevocable trusts.
getting more popular. So having these layers of people that can kind of safeguard that the strategy is executed according to plan, also provides comfort.
Yeah, lawyers have gotten really good at walking the line between irrevocability and flexibility.
Yeah.
And being able to keep things like a trust protector who'd have a separate person who'd have the right to remove your trustee and replace them with somebody else, or make changes administratively to the trust so that it's easier to live with going forward. And I think that's really important to keep the flexibility.
Well, and I think it's really important for people to understand the level of flexibility that's out there in designing your trust, whatever the strategy may be.
Right.
They're not cookie cutter off the shelf.
Definitely not, yeah.
So if your estate is of value, or you're starting to think about, federal estate tax, getting with the right firm that can guide you in the right direction. And, for us, we're not a law firm.
Right.
So we have the ability to consult and give feedback and give advice and give our 2 cents and guide them to the best and brightest attorneys in the area. But I think the client finds a lot of peace in knowing, we're not the ones drafting the document, and, we're understanding the strategy fully and kind of able to discuss the pros and cons without being the one that's kind of sending them the bill.
Right, yeah. We're a second seat at the table, on their side of the table when they're having that
We're on
discussion
their
with their
side of
lawyer.
the table.
Yeah, for
Yep.
sure.
Yeah.
So who do you think what's the profile of a client you might think of this thing for?
I think with irrevocable trusts in general, the individual that has a focus on their legacy, and, for a lot of our clients, they built a business from scratch, they accumulated their wealth, through a lot of hard work and effort, and they want to make sure that their life's work gets to the next generation. And if we could avoid stopping at the government or state level to take a little bite out of the apple, that's the client, right? I don't know what's going to happen with federal estate tax law. We've seen it at $2.5 million. We've seen it at $3.5 million exemption. Today's exemption level at $15 million, we know is going to be in place for the foreseeable future, based on the one big beautiful bill.
Right.
Act.
OBA.
But we don't know what's going to happen
Right.
10 years from now.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going to happen 15 years from now. So I think we have a lot of clients that, leading up to this year, 2025, with the anticipated potential expiration of the current tax plan, they were thinking about it and now got into the mode of talking about it. And we've also seen a lot of our clients' estate values grow tremendously over the last few years. Right? Whether that be investing in the capital markets or investing in their private businesses, we've had the good fortune of working with a lot of clients that have accumulated a lot of wealth, much of which is in excess of what they're going to need to sustain their lifestyle and their personal financial plan.
Right. And the good thing about this type of trust is that even if it's not in excess of what they need, they have the safety valve to pull it back, which you don't typically with a standard irrevocable trust.
That's the biggest thing.
That's the feature.
Right. So normally if I'm going to give this asset up, I'm going to put it into an irrevocable trust. I'm kind of giving away the access to that asset. Here I'm getting the benefit of the growth outside of my estate, but I'm still retaining control on the income, and should I need principal, from everything that I understand, it should be fairly easy to get my hands on it.
Yep, with a trustee who's on the same page as you, absolutely.
Making sure you have the right trustee is key.
Another thing that's really important about a DAPT is that it allows you to protect your own assets from your own creditors.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's something that a lot of your clients raise as a concern. I think it's important for people to understand that there's limitations on that. There's essentially a 4-year statute of limitations before it's effective. And there are some creditors you can't avoid, like child support and that kind of thing. But in general, if you get ahead of the game, you can protect assets from your own creditors that might arise later.
I think the reality is as we grow our businesses, you have more risk, right? You're dealing with more clients. We have a lot of clients in the medical field. Obviously, there's a lot of risk in that space, and in basically every business today, from cybersecurity threats to you said this and no, I didn't.
Right.
So creditor protection and asset protection is a tremendous part of trust work. And, we've seen a lot of our clients execute on irrevocable trust strategies for no other reason than the creditor protection, potential that it provides. So I think, when we go through the pros and cons and we kind of list out, these are all the benefits, and you throw in, I'm removing growth of my, future growth from, my current estate and future estate taxation, and I still maintain access and control to a very great extent, and I gain creditor protection. So if somebody, an employee or a customer decides they want to potentially sue me, my asset isn't at risk.
Right.
It's a tremendous benefit.
Yeah. There's only so much you can insure against with an umbrella policy, or just do careful driving or what have you. Yeah. So that's great. That's good information. I think it's really important for people to be aware of and to know that it's not easy. It's complicated, but the benefits can be really substantial if you do it right and if you draft it carefully and all of those things.
Yeah, it can be costly, right?
Sure.
We're talking about getting a valuation done for the business.
Yeah.
Right? So we have to bring in a CVA, right? Somebody that's certified to do valuations.
Right.
There's costs associated with that. You're going to have legal costs in drafting the document, right? We're filing trust tax returns now.
Right.
right? So there's definitely cost associated with it, and each individual circumstance is going to be different. But, again, depending on the size of the estate, the size of the asset that we're gifting, there's potentially millions of dollars of benefit in it.
It's a risk management tool.
Yep.
Sure. And I think it's also important to understand that it's popular for business owners, but it doesn't have to be just a business. It could be liquid assets, investables, it could be real estate, it could be life insurance.
Right.
It can hold really anything that you want to throw at it.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen, a tremendous amount of wealth being accumulated in employee stock plans. We get the good fortune of working with corporate executives in some of the greatest companies in the world that are accumulating a tremendous amount of equity in their company.
Sure.
So yeah, any asset could be used theoretically. It doesn't have to be a private business.
Right. Absolutely. So just in general, I know that estate planning is a big focus for your practice. Can you just tell us a little bit about why that is, why you find it important, and what your approach to estate planning is?
I mean, it's hard to do a financial plan and not really talk about the client's estate plan.
Yeah.
We started to make this kind of a core competency where a client is hiring us as their financial advisor. Well, we need to cross the T's and dot the I's for that client.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What sense does it make to, set up their investments appropriately, make sure their family's protected with the right insurance coverages, they're doing the right things from a tax perspective, but then the estate plan isn't, put together to make sure everything gets to where it's supposed to go.
Right, you're not crossing the finish line.
You're right, you haven't crossed the finish line. So, I think for us, it was just a very natural part of the comprehensive financial plan, which is really the core of our business. And, I think you see enough of what we send over. A client comes on board with us, and, one of the first things that they're doing is uploading their existing estate planning documents.
Right.
And that could be a will from 25 years ago that was done, when they had their first child, and now that child's 25 and it's, completely obsolete. Or it could be something that was done a few years ago and it's 300 pages thick.
Right.
And it's like, I have no idea what this actually says. So we normally start off with doing a review of the current documents, as brief or extensive as they may be, having a follow-up conversation with the client to say, this is what it says, and does it match kind of where you are in life?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people get overwhelmed with the concept of doing estate planning, but in its simplest form, we just want to make sure your stuff gets to where it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
We don't pay extra taxes or costs along the way. And if you couldn't speak for yourself on a medical issue or a financial issue, you've got the right documents in place to support your intentions.
Right. It's just instructions for people to follow
Yep.
when you leave behind assets or when you can no longer communicate for yourself. So that's music to my ears. I love hearing that. And you guys do a great job at it, which is one of the reasons why I wanted you to be in this conversation, because I know that it's important to you and it's important to me. So that's why I'm here. So That's great, Ben. Thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time. And thank you for watching today. We appreciate you taking the time. If you want to learn more, you can visit barnumfinancialgroup.com or follow us on socials, Instagram and LinkedIn. Thanks very much.